Sunday, and it's time to get into the garden. Now, you got us into trouble.
Did I?
Yes.
Good. That's what I'm here for. Try and cause as much trouble as possible.
Nice to have you with us again, Bill.
Thanks, Jeremy.
We're joined today on the gardening show by Paul Fonk, who is the commercial manager of Mayford Seeds. Geez, these guys have been around for ages as well.
Yeah. And seeds are like one of those things which is the lifeblood almost of the gardening industry as well, because anybody can grow seeds. But there's a whole bunch of stuff about seeds that people just don't know.
Paul, thank you for joining us and welcome to the show. Is what Mel's saying true? Can anyone grow anything from seeds?
It's an enormous, and before I even answer that, I wanted just to hand out a compliment to you guys. There's so little element of gardening on television or radio anywhere in South Africa, and thank you for what you do and keep doing it. We are so pleased to have some way of speaking to our consumers. Thank you for that.
Only a pleasure.
To answer the question, I usually use this intro when we do talks in spring, and I remind people that spring is the start of life. It's when you can plant literally anything from seed. There might be three exceptions, and there's cauliflower and peas and probably broad beans that only get planted in winter. Everything else is now plantable from seed, and it's a very exciting time of the year. And if you think of your own age and add 9 months, even you came from a seed. So anyone can do it. It's really easy.
Which is, in your opinion, the lazy gardener's way out? Planting from seeds or planting from seedlings?
I think the lazy way out is seedlings because it's instant color. I'm thinking generally of six packs, and that's to get instant color into the garden. But if you want to do something a little more interesting, like veggies, and they're not generally widely available as six packs, then yes, you do need to go to seed. And honestly, it is so easy. You just need to read the Idiot's Guide, which is the back of the pack. Some seed needs to go into a seedling tray, but many can just go straight into the ground. So just do the bit of research. And what I always say is plant what you enjoy eating, for goodness sake. If you don't enjoy Brussels sprouts, leave them out and plant something that you enjoy.
Is it true?
And always just have a quick look at the mathematics as well, because the plant, once it's germinated, needs space. So just be careful of your spacing as well. That would be one of the general hints.
So don't do things like I do. We just throw everything into the air, and where it lands is where it gets planted. Sometimes it works. But is it true that you should, people always say that you need to plant 4 seeds to get one plant? One for the wind to blow away, one to die or be eaten by insects, one for the birds, and one to grow.
Definitely. We just launched strawberry for the first time ever in South Africa, strawberry seeds, and they are so small. They are so tiny. You open the pack on a windy day, you will lose half your seed in the wind. This is very true. In general, we talk about 2. So if you're planting veggies or even flowers or lawn seed, you really always want 2 for good measure. And why is that? Well, God didn't make everything perfect. Not every seed germinates. Not every child gets born. There's an element of error. We would only pack and produce seed that it has 80% germination or higher. So there's a very good chance if you just take one seed out of a pack, that might be the one that doesn't work. So always take 2 for good measure.
You like growing a lot of stuff. Do you grow from seed?
I do grow from seed, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. One thing I know a lot of people get confused about, and I'm sure you know already because you've spoken to a few of the people, the difference between ordinary seed, hybrid seed, and heirloom. So what is the basic difference? I mean, Mayford seed, mainly hybrids, or is there a lot of original seed, mother plant?
I would say that Mayford is 99% OP. That's open pollinated, natural, heirloom. This is what God gave us. And the reason we have a few what we call F1 hybrids in the range is that these are just exceptionally clever seeds. They've been taught to be more round or more even or have a better germination or perhaps even have a better harvest. So those would be reasons why you would go for an F1. And I'm thinking specifically tomatoes. If you go back to the original tomatoes, they're massive. They don't have even size. They look ugly, in fact, but they are delicious. And it was when the canning industry started. That's when hybridization of tomatoes became a thing because you can't fit these huge tomatoes into a can. So they hybridize them just to be smaller. That's all. There's nothing wrong with hybridization. It's not GMO. It's purely taking two different tomatoes and creating a unique third version, as it were.
Paul, what are Mayford's prime sellers, would you say?
Wow. I think if you look in vegetables, the number one vegetable selling seed in South Africa is Swiss chard. It is just a national favorite. Swiss chard, and a close second would be mustard. We probably have, as we all know, a very high percentage of the Zimbabwean population living in South Africa. They prefer mustard. Our South African population, they grew up on Swiss chard, they know it, and it's Fordic Giant. It's like it's got to be Fordic Giant. That's the one that they love. That's by far the single largest selling seed in South Africa. If we look at the Mayford range, we probably became more famous for our vegetable range, but then also our lawns, and that was the one area that we wanted to talk about. But it's pretty much our lawn seed that also launched our brand at the time when we started all those years ago.
Melanie's Green Deserts.
Yes, indeed. This is what got me a little hot under the collar, because it's the end thing to say, hey guys, we can't plant seed, we can't plant lawn anymore, and that's a lot of nonsense, because where you're going to play with the kids, where is the dog going to poo-poo, what's going to, there's so many things that lawn is good for. It cools the surface of the soil. And if you were, for example, walking on your patio with bare feet in the middle of summer, you're not going to be able to walk there for very long. It's far too hot. Step onto the grass with bare feet and it's nice and cool. So there's so many advantages. Lawn also filters, if you like, rainwater. And rainwater is really what we need to get into the soil. We need groundwater. So there's lots of reasons why you have to have some lawn. So I'm not saying you have to have huge masses of kikuyu lawn, because those are the water guzzlers. We still sell a lot of kikuyu seed, but there's such clever alternatives.
And those are?
Yes, well, so if we look back into Mayford's history, we became famous with trade names like All Seasons Evergreen and Shade Over. So these are cool season lawns. They use a lot of water. They are fantastic, and they are evergreen, so they are extremely popular. But they are water guzzlers. So we started several years back already to look at indigenous grasses that belong in South Africa. And we've come up with two of them. We so far are the only brand that has managed to crack harvesting the seed. And those are Elm Berea, and Buffalo. Buffalo is more prevalent in the Cape. Elm Berea, indigenous, well, the name Elm comes from Lorenzo Marx, the previous name of Maputo. That's what gave the lawn its name. And Berea is a suburb of Durban. So Elm Berea became the name for this lawn. And it is indigenous to that zone, but it grows all over South Africa beautifully. And it's a genuine kikuyu replacement. It creeps like kikuyu. It grows like kikuyu. It goes dormant in winter. It will also go a bit brown if you already have a heavy winter, but it'll come back as soon as the rain and temperature come back in spring. And it is just the clever way of avoiding kikuyu and replacing kikuyu, if you like.
I think what a lot of people miss about lawns is that they don't necessarily just have to be lawns. Some of the most beautiful lawns I've seen around the world are natural lawns where you find little flowers in it as well. And I've always found those so beautiful, and I don't think we do enough of that.
Well, I think South Africans are like so completely obsessed with having the perfect lawn, and they put so much food into it, and they kill all the life in it. And that's when I talk about a green desert. It's when you've got these big swathes of people creating something which it feels lifeless, even if it is green and it's cool and everything. But I do have lawn. I have said I do have lawn because I had dogs and I had kids and all of that stuff. And I like to walk around with my feet on the grass.
Great.
Okay. I don't have a problem with it, but I do have a problem when I see people trying desperately through the winter months to keep their kikuyu green when it's supposed to be dormant, but they water and water and water. And I mean, as we know, we've been having like a major water crisis with Rand Water doing a whole bunch of stuff with the lines and lots of people being without water in the last week. And then we got people who are just like spraying water everywhere at rate of knots, and that drives me crazy. But what about other indigenous grasses, more kind of felt grasses, those wilder grasses?
Yes.
I mean, have you gone into that yet?
We do. We have a range called Biomazone, developed by the ex-MD of Mayford. He did a lot of research, and it was initially based on replacing felt grass that had been damaged by fire or drought, and it really was creating food for wild animals. That was the objective. So we've landed up with two of these great mixes. One is called bushveld, the other one is called grassveld. And these are the indigenous grasses that were here 10,000 years ago. You cannot get more indigenous than this. And the other thing about the other lawns that we spoke about, elm and buffalo, you don't have to irrigate them. They are indigenous. You just you need to germinate them. You need to look after them in the first 6 weeks, get them established. But then you leave it to nature. You don't have to irrigate. You can, and it'll be even more lush, but you don't have to. And this is the whole trick about indigenous.
And also when it comes to a cost point of view, I mean, if you ever costed out how much it would cost to go and put like those big sods of grass down, as opposed to, but it does take patience, but this is the problem as well, that so many people don't have the patience to garden. They want it yesterday.
Yeah, but that's the problem,
Yeah.
because gardening is about patience.
Yeah.
And it teaches you that patience.
Yes.
And you know, there's so many things in life where we as human beings are starting to demand instant gratification now. And to me, gardening isn't instant gratification. It's a process that you eventually walk out one morning with your cup of coffee and go, look around and say, I'm happy.
Yeah. I created it and it is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly what happened last year during the COVID crisis, where people went gardening. The government sent us home, and we went home, and we stepped out of the garden. We said, "Oh my word!" And we dashed into garden centres, and we've been improving our homes and the look of it. And there's a huge amount of happiness that is created that way.
Yeah.
I can give you a 5-hour lecture on how wonderful it is to step out into the sun and get some vitamins into your body and have that brain chemical shoot, and you just feel happy because you're in a garden setting.
Yeah, absolutely. Paul, thank you very much for joining us on Mansfield today. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Paul Fonk is the Commercial Director of Mayford Seeds. Thank you for your time,
Thank
sir.
you so much, Paul.
And thank you, Mel.
Yeah.
Nice to see you again.
We're going to go and chill somewhere under a tree.
Yeah, go do a bit of seed, exit.
Very funny.
Okay, Mel. We'll catch you next week.
All right, take good care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye to you as well.